P308 Philosophy of the Social Sciences. Study Session 1. Philosophy and Other Disciplines. Introduction. There are 4 cardinal branches of philosophy, namely metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and logic. Beyond these branches, however, there are other areas of knowledge where philosophers and practitioners in these areas collaborate to discuss specific issues and problems which arise from such disciplines. In this lecture, we shall be looking at the relationship between philosophy and other disciplines. More specifically, we shall examine some justifications supporting the philosopher's involvement in other disciplines, most especially science and the social sciences. Learning outcomes. At the end of this lecture, you will be able to identify other areas of knowledge where philosophers collaborate with experts to discuss issues and problems arising from such areas. Justify philosophy's involvement with science and the social sciences. The concern of philosophy with other disciplines. A general question likely to confront us in this course is what is the concern of philosophy with other disciplines, most especially with science and more specifically with the social sciences. If the broad conception of science as any body of knowledge is taken seriously, then philosophy and indeed other academic disciplines will count as science. However, philosophy as an academic discipline is not so much a system of accumulated knowledge, claims as other disciplines are. Rather, it is a critical study of the general problems which arise from the conventional beliefs, knowledge, claims, as well as practices in other areas of knowledge. Consequent upon such study, philosophy proposes normative constructs by which these other disciplines are to be measured or evaluated. Ordinarily, philosophy has its core areas like metaphysics, the study of what is, epistemology, the theory of knowledge, ethics, the study of morals, and logic, the study of regulative principles of reasoning. But the knowledge of these subjects and systems of philosophy equips the philosopher with the necessary principles and skills for raising and studying specific problems about other disciplines. Consequently, philosophy maintains a unique relationship with other disciplines. It serves as an interdisciplinary standpoint from which the logic and propriety of the methodological procedures of other disciplines are examined. It is for this reason that we have philosophy of X, where X is an academic discipline other than philosophy. In this regard, we have philosophy of religion, philosophy of education, philosophy of law, philosophy of history, philosophy of language, philosophy of mathematics, philosophy of science, and philosophy of the social sciences, amongst others. These are areas in which philosophers and specialists in other disciplines collaborate to discuss specific problems which arise from the practices in a given discipline. The fundamental issue here, however, concerns how we can justify the involvement or interference of philosophy in the affairs of these various disciplines in question. The first basic justification often provided by scholars is that many of these disciplines, which today go by different nomenclatures, actually arose out of philosophical questioning. For instance, political science, economics, sociology, and social anthropology arose directly from moral, social, and political philosophy. The natural sciences were originally studied as part of philosophy of nature, while psychology was under philosophy of mind. And as the enterprise of philosophy grew and progressed, many new branches of knowledge were born and many new disciplines created. This historical relationship between philosophy and the various disciplines, many have argued, confers on philosophy the status of an encompassing mother of all disciplines, whose duty it is to nurture and watch over these disciplines. It is in carrying out this duty that philosophy performs the following functions, which themselves justify the involvement of philosophy in the affairs of the various disciplines. 1. Philosophy supplies the necessary logical and epistemological principles and techniques of criticism for appraising or re-examining the methods and procedures which are employed in other disciplines. This is because the principles and methods or techniques of philosophy have been rationally validated over the centuries. 2. Philosophy examines, using its techniques and principles, the methods and procedures of other disciplines for their consistency and appropriateness in dealing with their specific subject matter. For example, in the social sciences, statistical, experimental, or field research data are used as basis for explaining and predicting the behavior of individuals in society. A political scientist, in explaining and predicting the political behavior of most Nigerians, might do so in terms of certain characteristics of the Nigerian society which have been established through empirical research. Again, the psychoanalyst might explain and predict the behavior of a neurotic patient in terms of the Oedipus complex hypothesis. In both examples, external laws, which are methodically derived from research data but which are external to the individual, are assumed to be responsible for the behavior of such individuals. This, for philosophers, is logically faulty and inappropriate. For to explain individual behavior in terms of external laws and principles is to assume that individuals are controlled from without by external factors, thereby denying persons of their free will and the freedom to act as they deem fit. 3. Again, philosophy reveals the basic metaphysical presuppositions or assumptions of other disciplines in order to ascertain the nature and scope of knowledge claims which are made therein. By disclosing the basic assumptions of the various disciplines, philosophy helps to delimit the boundary and scope of operation of each discipline, thereby ensuring that no discipline unwittingly encroach on one another's subject matter. In other words, philosophy functions as a guard or watchdog over the autonomy and mutual independence of the various disciplines. Finally, philosophy examines and draws out the interdisciplinary moral, sociopolitical, and cultural implications of the methods, the material products, and knowledge claims of the various disciplines. For example, philosophers discuss the morality and cultural consequences of induced abortion, euthanasia, genetic engineering, in vitro fertilization, as well as the mass production and stockpiling of arms and ammunition. Though these developments derive from modern scientific progress, philosophy examines their tremendous impacts on others apparently unrelated spheres of human activities like morals, politics, religion, economy, and cultural values. In fact, these developments constitute contemporary issues for discussion in philosophy, precisely in the area of ethics. However, because our focus in this course is on social science as a variant of science, we should be more concerned with the involvement of philosophy with science generally and more specifically with the social sciences. The concern of philosophy with science and the social sciences. Until the mid-19th century, there was no difference between philosophical inquiry and scientific investigation. In fact, science existed as natural philosophy. According to Russell L. Ackoff, in the days when all scientists were philosophers and most philosophers were scientists, a great deal of attention were given to the way in which knowledge was acquired and justified. Russell, 1962, page 27. Moritz Schlick, the leader of the Vienna Circle, also corroborates this point when he argued that the principles which are needed for the understanding of scientific inquiries are philosophically derived and that they pertain to the branch of philosophy called epistemology. According to Schlick, we can only understand scientific inquiries in their depth when we provide them with epistemological foundations. Milton, 1981, page 238. This historical romance between philosophy and science explains the concern of philosophy interest with the scientific enterprise. In expressing this concern, philosophy involves itself in conceptual analysis by defining concepts or problem areas in such a way as to make them susceptible to scientific study. Also, philosophy not only examines assumptions concerning the nature of reality, which underlie science. It attempts to fuse the findings of the various branches of science into one consistent view of reality. In doing this, philosophy examines not only the interrelations among the sciences, but also the relation of the sciences with other aspects of civilization and culture. Although the various sciences have their specific objects of investigation, a common methodological procedure is, however, discernible among the various specialized sciences. This procedure, by which conclusions and discoveries are allowed to be made in every science, is called the scientific method. Nevertheless, philosophers also raise methodological problems regarding the scientists' use of this method. How, for instance, can we say that the scientific method is rational and free from a priori metaphysical presuppositions? Even more worrisome is the problem of induction, which is at the base of most laws guiding explanation in science. How, for instance, is the inductive method of drawing inferences to be justified? Following the principles of induction, to what extent can we say that scientific predictions are guaranteed by past experiences? Even the scientific practice of confirming and verifying hypotheses raises the question of how massive the supportive evidence for a hypothesis should be, in order for it to rank as a firm and an indubitable knowledge. At another level, the philosopher raises the question of whether there is an ideal science to which all other sciences are approximations. For instance, the philosopher may want to know whether all the sciences are governed by the same natural laws and theories, and whether the logic of explanation is the same for all the sciences or there are mutually independent modes of explanation. These issues are of serious concern to philosophers. Addressing them does not require any expertise in any or all of the sciences. What is needed is knowledge of the basic presuppositions and logical interrelations of the sciences, and these the philosopher possesses. Let us conclude by looking at some reasons why philosophers are interested in the social sciences. Philosophers are interested in finding out whether there is actually a unity of method between natural sciences and the social sciences. Otherwise, the question which science will continue to stare us in the face. Philosophers are also interested in knowing the extent to which the assertion of science is able to guarantee some degree of certainty regarding the output of social science. Finally, philosophers are interested in the claims of the social sciences, most especially their use of the scientific method, given the fact that there are other means of justifying social scientific claims that do not make explicit recourse to doctrines of science. This concern is important because, as Alan Ryan rightly notes, there's only one central methodological question about the social sciences, and that is whether they are sciences at all. Study session summary. So far in this lecture, we have examined the relationship between philosophy and other disciplines. We explained that there are other areas of knowledge which philosophers and practitioners in these areas collaborate to discuss specific issues and problems which arise from such areas. We concluded by examining some justifications supporting the philosopher's involvement in other disciplines, most especially science and the social sciences. End of study session 1. Thank you for listening.